Hello again. Continuing this example for this leg going to Al-Ahsa. In the last video we covered the cruise segment, and in this video we'll be going over the descent approach flows and checklists. So now the descent approach checklists have been completed in the previous video. Let's assume we are clear to descend to Al-Ahsa and frequency change is approved. So we'll go ahead and set up the MSA initially 3500. It's a good practice whenever there is an MCB change performed by any pilot, needs to be verbalized to the other pilot. So for example, if the pilot flying have set 3500 here, you should say 3500 set. So now we have about 20 miles to our top of descent. If the clearance to descent was not given by ATC, it's a good idea to buy at least 10 miles from your top of descent to request descent clearance. Okay, so as you approach the top of descent, the pilot flying need to verbalize that 2000 descending to 3500 and then call any FMA changes that take place. Okay, so retard 2000 descending 3500. So as you approach 10,000 here, the pilot monitoring will do his flow for the 10,000, fixed landing light to pulse daytime and to on the nighttime, runway turn off lights on, logo light, nighttime operation on, daytime off, and the wing light on. And then at 10,000, the pilot monitoring should call 10,000. Although there is a control tower in Al-Ahsa or an advisory tower, TBA calls need to be made, and the proper position report need to be made. The standard, for example, now we are 24 miles north of Al-Ahsa VR. So okay, so call sign, radial, DME, altitude you are descending to, and altitude you are descending through and to, and what's your intention, and then finally the touchdown time, which can be found here in the progress page. So for example, call sign 20 miles, radial 010 from Al-Ahsa, 8400 descending 3500 for right downwind, runway 34, touchdown time 0554. Okay, so now we are entering right downwind for runway 34. Okay, drag required, clicking the message. And this is a good setup for the two CDUs, one to have the active page for the pilot flying and the progress page for the pilot monitoring. So now the pilot monitoring will have an access to the track miles to the runway, and here he can monitor the target speed and the target altitudes. So for example, at the deceleration point here, it will show that it is slowing from 240 to up speed, and it will be shown here in the box. And you can back up the FMC by doing a mental math, comparing your track miles to your present altitude. And in a future video, we'll be covering the techniques to do the mental math for the a decent track miles to the runway. Okay, so now the VNAV is slowing to up speed. FMC speed is the FMA change that need to be called by the pilot flying. Now the flaps limit speed for flaps 1 is 250, but it's not a good idea to extend the flaps at even 240 or 230. It's a good idea to let the airplane decelerate, for example, to 220 before you extend to flaps 1. That will extend the life for the flaps actuators. And as you approach your altitude here, 1000 to level off, go ahead and set the next altitude, so 2200 for a traffic pattern altitude. So 2200 set, check. Okay, so now we are approaching the up speed, and 220 flaps 1 will be set by the pilot monitoring. And as the flaps extend to 1, you can now request flaps 5. So flaps 5. The target speed will be set automatically by VNAV, since we are still in VNAV mode. And now for the next flap extension and the gear, 8 track miles to the runway. It's a good idea to extend the gear down and flaps 15, and then 6 miles, flaps 30, and landing checklist. And that will ensure that by the final approach fix, or 5 miles from the runway, you are fully configured and the landing checklist is out of the way. And as you approach your target altitude here, everything is under control. Go ahead and set 1000 above field elevation, or the minimums if you like. So let's assume that we'll be setting here 1000 above field elevation, so 1600. Okay, so now we are turning base. So set the heading, and then check your track miles. It's still 10 miles to touchdown. Okay, so at 8 miles or so, the pilot flying will request gear down and flaps 15. The pilot monitoring will extend the gear, verify that the current speed is below the limit speed for flaps 15, and then extend the flaps to 15. So I'll go ahead and now gear down, flaps 15. So the pilot monitoring will extend to flaps 15, speed check, flaps 15. Now the pipeline will arm the speed brake now. I'm verifying that the green light is illuminated. Pilot monitoring will select the engine start switches to continuous, and then he will advise the cabin crew over the PA to remain seated for landing. Okay, so the speed brake armed, verify the green light is on. This is by pilot flying. Pilot monitoring will switch the engine start switches to continuous and announce over the PA to remain seated for landing. Now, as I said before, you may not be able to capture the glide slope here over the final approach fix, especially in the summertime. So you can either select vertical speed at 1000 feet per minute and monitor your descent rate to capture the glide slope here over the 5 miles final, or you can just leave it LNAV, VNAV, disengage and continue as a visual approach since it is already a visual approach. Or the third technique that we talked about is just instead of going for a 5 miles base, go 6 or 7 miles final, and then put the altitude here and speed over Rimba as a hard altitude on this point, and that will ensure that you'll be below the glide slope turning toward the runway, and then you can arm the approach. So I'm gonna go ahead now and select the localizer to the active in both sides. And as you can see now we are 7 miles. So at 6 miles, the pilot flying should request flaps 30. So 6 miles, okay, flaps 30, so speed check, flaps 30. Then I'm gonna put runway heading here, 343. Okay, so we are turning toward the airport. I'm gonna arm the approach, and again, Warlock glide slope. Okay, so now it's captured, but as I said, sometimes in the airplane it will not capture because the airplane will be slightly above the glide slope. If it does capture, that's good. If not, then as I said before, on the right base you can select vertical speed 1000 feet per minute, and that will ensure a stabilized approach, and it will get you in a position to capture the glide slope as well. So now we have Warlock glide slope. Pilot flying will set the missed approach altitude 2500, and the landing checklist. It's read by the pilot monitoring and response by pilot flying. So landing checklist, engine start switches, continuous, speed brake, armed, landing gear, down, flaps 30, and green light, and the landing checklist is complete. Okay, so here we intercepted the Warlock and the glide slope. So the pilot flying will set the missed approach here, 2500. In case, as I said, the glide slope not captured, then either you go for vertical speed and increase your descent rate, or continue on LNAV, VNAV, since we have a visual contact with the runway already. So here using the track line, when you fly manually to align the airplane with the extended center line, it's a very good tool to use, especially if you are doing an RNAV approach or a visual approach. But here, since we are doing an ILS, of course the localizer and the glide slope are very accurate. So now descending through 1000 feet, the pilot monitoring should go to the progress page, second page here, and at 500 to announce to the pilot flying the headwind, tailwind, and crosswind components. And when the pilot flying disconnects the autopilot, he should announce the change here of FD. So if I go and disconnect here, he should announce to the pilot monitoring autopilot, auto throttle coming off, and then when he does disconnect, he should announce FD. So we'll continue the example here with the autopilot engaged. So here 500 is going to be an automatic call, and then the pilot monitoring should announce clear to land, and then you have, for example, here tailwind 1 knot and no crosswind. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 are going to be an automatic call, and that will help the autopilot, the pilot flying to gauge the rate of the closure to the runway. So here on touchdown, the pilot monitoring is looking for the speed brake to deploy, and will announce to the pilot flying speed brake up. And when the pilot flying deploy the reverses, he should look for the green reverse here, and then announce reverse as normal. So now speed brake up, reverse as normal. For the engine cool down time of 3 minutes, the captain should start his clock when the thrust levers are at idle, and that's including the reverses. If the pilot flying have deployed the reverser beyond the idle detent, then you should wait until he reduce the reversers to idle, and then you can start the stopwatch for the 3 minutes cool down. So now, decelerating to 60 knots. 60 knots is a call by the pilot monitoring. The pilot flying should start moving the reversers to the idle detent by 60 knots. And then at taxi speed, he should stow the reversers. Once the engines stabilize at idle here, the captain should start his stopwatch. For the 3 minutes cool down. Approaching taxi speed, the captain will take controls from the FO if the FO was the pilot flying, and then he will continue the taxi to the ramp. Okay, so now the captain, I have the controls from the FO you have the controls. Okay, so as you clear off the runway, and once you clear the hold short lines, the captain will restore the speed brake. So the captain will restore speed brake, and that's an indication for the FO to start his after landing flow. The flow will start with starting the APU for the first officer, and then probe heat, all chill, and then you turn back here for the lights. If the retractable lights were on, switch them off, fixed landing light off, turn off lights off, ignition to off, and strobes position to steady, wing light off, logo light, night operation on, daytime off, and then you come down here. Each pilot should switch his weather radar off. So if the captain forgot to switch his weather radar, then I advise him to switch the weather radar off at this point. And then you move down here, select the upper display to the composite mode, lower display to systems, So you can see the brake temperature. Retract the flaps. And this is not written in the procedure, but reset the stab trim to 5 inches. And then you continue to the transponder to standby. In Al-Hassa, once you clear the runway, you should advise tower of your next destination and you requested altitude. So for example, next Tanajib, level 240 or Dammam, 1000 for example. And then transmit on TIBA that you are clear of the runway. We'll be waiting for the APU to start and the blue light for the APU generator to come online, and then therefore we'll select the APU gen on both sides and then advise the captain that APU generator is on bus. Now as the captain performs his last turn toward the marshaller, he will request the taxi light to be turned off. So at that point, and only at that point, go ahead and switch the taxi light off. And at nighttime operation, just not to blind the marshaller, go ahead and select it off before turning toward the marshaller. So let's assume now the captain requested the taxi light off. So taxi light off. And let's say we'll stop here. Parking brake is set by the captain. Now the captain will verify that the 3 minutes had passed already for the engine cool down, and then he will verify that the APU generator is on pass. So it is on pass, and then he will shut down both engines. Okay, so start levers to cut off. Then he will verify that the engines are spooling down, and he will request from the FO the shutdown checklist. The request of the shutdown checklist is a trigger for the FO to do the flow. So don't do the flow unless the captain asks for the shutdown checklist. So now let's assume that the captain have requested the shutdown checklist. So the FO will start by switching the seatbelt sign to off, anti-collision light off, and that's the sequence in the FCOM, by the way. Now fuel pumps, you leave one on for the APU generator. So, and you look at the fuel gauges. If you have any more than 1000 in the center tank, you can switch one of the center tank fuel pumps on. If the fuel in the right side is more than the left side, go ahead and open the cross feed and switch one on the right side on. Otherwise, any pump on the left side will do. Okay, so fuel pumps off, and then hydraulic banner set. So switch the electric hydraulic pumps off, and the air conditioning, open the isolation valve, and then APU bleed on, and then read the shutdown checklist. Okay, so the shutdown checklist is read by the first officer and response by area of responsibility. So fuel pumps off, read and response by the FO. Probe heat, audio, hydraulic panel set, and then flaps up. Parking brake set, and that's a response by the captain, and just levers cut off, a response by the captain as well. Whether radar off is the response by the first officer, and the shutdown checklist is complete. Okay, so this is the end for this tutorials for the first leg that we done, which is departing from Dammam and landing in Al-Ahsa. Now, most of our flights in Al-Ahsa consists of about 10 to maximum 15 minutes turnaround time. So here is where the marathon starts for the first officer, especially since you need to do all the flows again now and within limited time. So we'll cover this now to do the next leg, and let's assume we're returning back to Dammam now. First of all, you need to do a quick realignment for the IRSs, and you can find the procedure in the supplementary procedure if comes. And what you need to do is go to the IRS mode panel and select both of them to align, and now return back to the CDU and set a GPS position. So here the airport is Al-Ahsa, Oscar Echo Alpha Hotel. And then go to next page. Take either of the GPS lat and long and then put it in the set IRS position. Okay, so this is done with the quick realignment. Now go back again to the IRS mode panel and select the selectors to nav. So now if you go to nav, the IRSs almost immediately are realigned and you will have back the PFDs. Okay, so the PFDs are back now. So this is the first step that you need to do, is the quick realignment of the IRSs. If you are staying more than 1 hour, you can do a full realignment, but for a short turnaround, just do the quick realignment. And next, you'll do your flow for the overhead panel as you did before, and this time is going to be a quick one, so just make sure that all the switches are in the proper position that you want it to be. And again, you do the complete scan. So here's nothing that to do here except for the pressurization, which is you set the next cruising altitude, so 1000 for example, and then as I said, we are turning back to Dammam, so 100 here for landing field elevation, and then you come here. The ignition will go to the, you alternate now, so you go to the left side and you come down from here to the oxygen mask, and you can do a short test only with the oxygen mask this time. If you want to do the 5 seconds and make sure that there is no drop, you can do that, but if you just do the test with the yellow cross, that should be enough. And then you come back here. Okay, I forgot to mention that in the shutdown checklist, coming down, that the first officer will switch both flight directors off, so I missed this one. So we'll continue with the pre-flight now. So you come here, switch the auto brake to RTO and verify the lights illuminates and then extinguishes, and then check the fuel burn and then reset. And now you set the box for the next leg. So we'll go again with the route. So we'll go with the company route, so Alpha Hotel, Delta Foxtrot, and when you put it here, you'll have the company route, and then you'll put the runway 3, 4 for example, And you'll continue the setup as we did in the CDU pre-flight video. So I'll not cover the whole procedure here. Now you continue. Check your frequencies, check everything. And then set up the OPT for the departure. Now it's going to be Oscar Echo Alpha Hotel, and the destination is Oscar Echo Delta Foxtrot. And you have the your weather, obtain the weather for destination, and set up the box, and that will cover your flows as a first officer. The captain will be doing a walk around. You return back, do an oxygen mask test, and then recheck the CDU for the setup, and then he will request the pre-flight checklist, and we'll continue from there as we did in the previous videos. So this will conclude our first phase of this tutorial videos, which covered all the normal procedures, starting from the electrical power up all the way to a through flight. We'll cover the secure checklist, which is simple and a short flow in a future video. And we'll be covering more advanced techniques, and we'll have some discussion about descent planning and some advanced features in the CDU in future videos. I'd like to thank you for watching the videos, and I hope it was of some benefit to you. If you have any comments, and if you see any deviations from the procedures or Boeing FCOM, please let me know. Thank you again.